I'll
This
call this meeting to
conference
order.
will now be recorded.
Thank you. As I said, there's a quorum. Directors Williams and Gray are here along with me. Is there any public comment? Craig, you're on board. Do you have any comment? Guess not.
None at the moment, thank you.
Okay.
And Chairman Deere, we have received several emails for public comment, some of which are not clear as to whether it was for the Finance Committee or the closed session or special meeting that'll take place at noon. Our assumption based off of the subject matter would be that they would be more relevant to the special board meeting. So at this time, I don't believe we have any public comments that have been submitted or emailed in related to the Finance Committee.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any presentations?
Chairman Deere, there are none.
All right. We'll go to the action calendar, and we have approval of the minutes of 4 meetings. Do we have any have a motion to approve? Director Williams. Committee member?
I concur.
All right. If there's nothing on the minutes, we'll go on to item B. Agreement for the solids handling, disposal, and beneficial reuse. Who's going to handle it?
Yes. Thank you very much, Chairman Deere. This item is specifically related to an amendment to our agreement for solids hauling and disposal of beneficial use. This item relates to West Basin's existing 2-year agreement with Denali Water Solutions, agreement W2920, and West Basin's Manager of Operations, Uzi Daniel, will be reporting this item along with staff's recommendation.
Thank you, EJ. Good morning, directors. Referring to page 28 in your packet, I am bringing to you today an action item, and that is for amendment to add the 2nd year of funding to a 2-year contract we have with Denali Water Solutions. Attachment A contains some of that information, and we had a 2-year agreement that will expire in June of 2022. It was funded for 1 year, and we've recalculated some estimates to come back for the 2nd year of funding. By way of background, solids, as some often refer to as sludge, are required as a part of doing business West Basin. All of our treatment processes involve some form of the solids hauling, disposal, and reuse. We could not operate Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility without solids hauling. There is also a compliance end to solids hauling, which makes it sometimes complicated when we do go out to bid. We are required to have permitted facilities, and this is unique. As many of you know, in California, we regulate things quite well, and so most of our requirements for recycled water, potable water, are state related. There are very few that are federal. However, biosolids, Rule 503, is an EPA regulation. That means the facilities that receive those solids or reuse them are also susceptible to EPA guidelines. That can complicate matters if they temporarily lose some suspension. We depend on some very qualified vendors to make sure they know where they're allowed to go, what alternatives they might have, and then later we actually have to report that to regulators. So last year we came to the board, we went out to bid for new hauling and disposal. We came to the board and we presented to you an agreement that would be for 2 years, and the selected party was Denali Water Solutions. That agreement at the time was estimated to require a budget contract amount of $1,832,948.70. We have this year then calculated, and if you refer then to the table in this packet, table 1, you can see that we recalculated based on influent water quality, flow, and a number of factors to get a more accurate account of what we would need and to come back to you for the second year of funding. It's important to note that our solids are completely dependent not only on the quantity of water that we produce and treat, but also on the influent water quality. That is very clearly when we get upsets or the poorer the water quality we receive, the more coagulant it takes, the more ferric it takes, and that results in a lot more solids hauling. We haul approximately 2 to 5 loads a day, and the price in the contract is based on a per ton basis. That per ton is also dependent on the certified locations that can receive it. In addition, regulations, the industry, a lot of NGOs are requesting that we reuse as much as possible. It's the green thing to do, and West Basin does strive to do that, although there's often a cost differential. What we brought to you today then is the new amount, and based on our new tonnage, I would like to read the recommendation to the board, and that is that the board authorize the general manager to amend agreement W2920 with Denali Water Solutions for solids hauling, disposal, and beneficial reuse services in the amount of $1,815,557 plus 10% contingency in the amount of $181,555.70 for a total increase of $1,997,112.70 for the revised not to exceed amount for the.
Hello?
Susie, you went on mute.
Apologize for that. And do I need to reread the recommendation, or the last part there is in our packet on page 29?
It's the last line.
Sure, that the plus 10% contingency of $181,555.70 for a total increase of $1,997,112.70, and the revised not to exceed agreement amount of $3,830,061.40. Lots of numbers, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
None from me, thank you.
Gloria, Scott, any questions? All right, that
No, thank you.
send
No,
us
thank
along,
you.
Director Williams. Thank you.
I would recommend that this goes on to the full board for approval.
All right, we'll pass that on the full board, and we'll go on to item C.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman Deere. Item number C begins on packet page 62. And this item does relate to the electronic procurement system amendment. And this is a contract assignment. This item relates to West Basin's existing 5-year agreement with Negometrix, agreement number W2926. And West Basin's contract administrator, Yvonne Lucas, will be handling this item.
Thank you, EJ. Good morning, directors and staff. I'm here to present on an amendment of assignment for contract number W2926 with Negometrix USA for an electronic procurement system. The electronic procurement system manages the district solicitations for goods and services. And as EJ stated, the agreement with Negometrix was awarded in November 2020. Last month, in May 2021, we were notified that Negometrix was acquired by Mercell Incorporated, and the company name would be replaced by Mercell. The assignment documents are in the attachments to the board memo. This amendment will assign the agreement to Mercell. The assignment transfers all rights, duties, obligations, and responsibilities from under the agreement from Negometrix to Mercell. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Director Williams.
Just one quick question. Where's Marcel located?
Marcel, I believe, is located headquartered in England.
In England?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say, Director Williams, that there is a U.S. presence, and I believe that's in New Jersey.
Yes, yes, yes,
Well, that's good to know.
yes, yes.
Thank you.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
shall I?
Go ahead and read the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Can you scroll down a little, please, so I can read the recommendation there? Thank you. Recommendation that the board authorizes the general manager to amend agreement number W2926 to assign the agreement from Negometrix USA Incorporated to Marcel Incorporated, with the understanding that Marcel Incorporated assumes all rights, duties, obligations, and responsibilities under agreement number W2926. Thank you.
All right. Should we pass it on, Director Williams?
I think so.
Okay, we'll do so. We'll go on now to item 5D. Reauthorization of tax and revenue anticipation note.
Yes, Chairman Deere, this item is related to a resolution number 06-12-1129. The reauthorization of tax and revenue anticipation note. West Basin's Manager of Finance, Marianne Rexroad, will be reporting this item and the recommendation.
Thank you, EJ. Good morning, Chairman Deere and members of the board and staff. I'll be presenting on item 5D, this action item, which begins at page 67 of your packet. You may recall in the October of 2018, the staff had initiated its current CP program through West Basin Financing Corporation. The CP program is secured or backed by a promissory note from the district to the financing corp. By law, that term of the note cannot be longer than 15 months. Therefore, in order to effectuate the note, the board is required to approve a resolution number 06-21-1129, which is included in your packet. It begins on page 70 through 77. And that note will then allow West Basin to then issue payment of any principal and interest to the financing corp related to the CP certificates. One other thing I want to point out is part of any time that a public agency issues debt, they have to make a good faith estimate. And so you will see at the bottom there of page 67, required by Government Code 5852.1, that the district, or in this case, a public agency, must disclose in a public meeting a good faith estimate that's provided by its municipal advisor. West Basin did reach out to PFM Financing Advisors LLC, and they prepared the estimates which you see at the top of page 68. Also want to point out that there are a number of estimates made when they do this good faith estimate. It does include the assumption that we'll have a 1% interest throughout the year. It also assumes that the full 50 million of the CP line will be utilized, and there will be payments that represent fees as part of the LOC, which is currently with Bank of the West, and fees to Barney's as the CP dealer, or Barclays as a CP dealer. Another thing just want to note is that as we presented last month at the April finance meeting, the district has solicited our proposals to replace its current LOC with Bank of the West. That particular LOC will expire in October, and I'm happy to report we are on track to bring that information back to the board in August. With that, I would like to read the recommendation to you. That the board approves resolution number 06-21-1129, resolution of the Board of West Basin Municipal Water District authorizing the execution of delivery of a tax and revenue anticipation note to support a commercial paper program. And that concludes my report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
No questions here. Thank you.
Or Director Williams, do you concur we should pass this on to the board?
Yes, I do.
All right, we'll do so then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Now we're on item 6, the information calendar.
Yes, Chairman Deere. The first item we have is information calendar 6A, which is our return to the office update, which includes some information related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our manager of human resources, Michelle Green, is here, and I believe she does have a PowerPoint presentation. This PowerPoint presentation was emailed to the board prior to the meeting and will be made available on our website as well. Michelle?
Good afternoon. Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, Chairman Deere and members of the board. I am giving an oral update today regarding return to the office consideration. And so it is a lot of information. So I am going to be reading detailed information that has been provided by either the governor's office or Cal OSHA, in addition to then providing updates from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and an update with regard to what they have advised. And then lastly, updates from West Basin's perspective. So if you go to the next slide.
One moment, Director Alvarez is on board. Desi, we're on item 6A.
Okay, thank you, and sorry I'm a little late.
Okay. Please continue.
Thank you. So an update on the Governor Newsom and Cal OSHA mandate. The Governor Newsom issued an executive order N-09021 on June 17, 2021. Essentially, this executive order mandates the readoption of the Occupational Safety and Health Standards Board emergency temporary standards to protect California workers from COVID-19, which established various workplace safety requirements for employers related to COVID-19, and including requirements for face coverings and physical distancing. Recognize that Governor Newsom, of course, has opened up the state effective June 15th. However, he must also comply with whatever the Cal OSHA's mandates are in terms of California workers, in the sense of workers' compensation issues, worker safety, etc. The OSHSB readopted and amended their version of the Emergency Temporary Standards, or the Cal OSHA COVID-19 regulations, wherein these amendments affect many of the requirements that have been in place since they initially adopted the regulations in November of 2020. The most important changes, which I'm going to speak to today, between the 3rd and June 17th amendments, pertains to their definition of what fully vaccinated means, 2, face covering requirements for fully vaccinated employees, 3, physical distancing requirements at work sites, 4, installation of solid partitions between workstations where physical distancing is not feasible, and 5, provision of respirators to employees who are not fully vaccinated. If you go to the next slide. So the board, Cal OSHA's board definition of fully vaccinated means that essentially the June 17th amendments were revised to give a full definition of what fully vaccinated means. So the employer has documented what fully vaccinated means. The employer has documented that the person received at least 14 days prior either the second dose in a 2-dose COVID-19 vaccine series or a 6-dose COVID-19 vaccine. So this change is important as it will allow employers to accept employee self-attestations or certification as to vaccination status rather than requiring that the employee obtain and retain copies of their vaccination records or medical records. As a best practice, the employers may request documentation of their vaccination status in order to ensure that the employees are actually fully vaccinated. Next slide. Under face covering, The June 17th amendments revised workplace face covering requirements for employees to align with the June 14th California Department of Public Health guidance for the general public. In essence, the June 17th amendments provide that fully vaccinated employees do not have to wear face coverings at work. This change represents an expansion of the exemptions for fully vaccinated employees from the June 3rd amendment, which only exempted such a fully vaccinated employee from the requirement to wear a face covering when the employee was in a room with other employees who are all fully vaccinated and symptomatic or outdoors and also asymptomatic. Again, there's going to be some more clarification on this as well, because keep in mind, we're looking at governor's mandates, we're looking at Cal OSHA mandates, in addition to LA County Public Health Department mandates or suggestions for best practices. So there'll be some further discussion on that as I proceed. Next, their definition of physical distancing. So Cal OSHA's June 17th amendment also removed the requirements related to physical distancing in the workplace. The June 3rd amendments retained the physical distancing requirements through the end of July, providing limited exceptions where employees were provided respirators for their use. And I will clarify, the definition of respirators in this case are masks such as your KN95 mask or your N95 mask. We're not referring to hospital respirators. As a result of the regulatory change, employers may now return employees to their work sites and facilities without the need to observe physical distancing requirements. Again, this is the Cal OSHA governor mandate. Then their definition of solid partitions between workstations, along with the removal of distancing requirements, the June 16 amendments also removed related requirements concerning the installation of solid partitions between workstations. Physical distancing not be changed at time. The June 3rd amendments retained the requirement related to the installation of partitions through the end of July, and further required that in the event of a workplace COVID-19 outbreak after that date, employers must reinstall such partitions. As a result of the regulatory changes, employers may remove the solid partitions between workstations if they elect to do so. Now, keep in mind, when they reference an outbreak here, that is simply, if, for example, when we return to the office, if we have 3 employees that come up positive for COVID-19 within the same 14-day work period, that is considered an outbreak. And so we would have to reinstall partitions if we had some and that were taken down, in addition to re-implementing certain protocols. So that is something to keep in mind, because we are still required under the law to report any outbreak of COVID-19, which in this case, with an agency of our size, would mean that if 3 employees test positive after returning to the office within a 14-day period, that is considered an outbreak. The next slide, provision of respirators to employees who are not fully vaccinated. So the June 17th amendments clarified that employers need only provide respirators to employees who are not fully vaccinated if the employee requests such device for their use at work and the employee is working indoors or will be in a vehicle with more than one person. The June 3rd amendments provided that all employees who are not fully vaccinated shall be provided respirators for voluntary use. While the language in the June amendments was unclear as to employer obligations related to the provision of face coverings for such employees. As a result of the regulatory clarification, employers that allow employees who are not fully vaccinated to report to their work sites and facilities need not provide each employee with a respirator, but must be prepared to provide such employees a respirator device if the employer requests one for their use at work and will be working indoors or will be in a vehicle with more than one person. Now, next slide, I'm going to be speaking to the Public Health Department protocol. So, due to Governor Newsom's mandate, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, their reopening protocols for office work sites have been retired and are no longer in effect. However, the Public Health Department has stated that the risk of COVID-19 is still present, especially for those who are not fully vaccinated against the virus. And they encourage businesses to continue taking steps to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission among their workers and visitors, and to follow best practices for businesses that operate out of office to consider a transition to full operation. So some of those best practices, go to the next slide, please. And again, this is information that has been documented on the Public Health Department's website. So the summary of their best practices are that, one, employers who fall under the scope of OSHA COVID-19 prevention emergency temporary standards, and that would be Basin as well, they must remain in compliance with these standards. You should require visitors to bring and wear masks when they are on site, regardless of vaccination status. Make masks available for those who arrive without them. We already have that in place. We have signage, and we have other, we have wellness stations that provide masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer for visitors or anyone entering the building. 3, if there is not a process for determining vaccination status among employees, require all employees to wear a face mask while on site, except under these circumstances. That is, if an employee is working alone in a separate office, if all employees in a space are fully vaccinated and vaccination status is verified, in a case where, as necessary for the employee to eat and drink during break time, provided it's indoors, they maintain 6 feet of distancing. If an employee works outdoors and can maintain 6 feet of distance from others, or if an employee's medical condition or disability or their job duties prevent mask wearing, employees that are not vaccinated and cannot wear face masks are required to keep 6 feet distance from others as much as possible and be tested for COVID-19 at least twice a week. Moving to the next slide, and this is in continuation of the LA County Public Health Department's best practices. Number 4, employees who work in a setting where they are in close contact with other people who may not be fully vaccinated should be provided a higher level of protection, such as wearing 2 masks or double masking or a respirator. And as I explained earlier, that would be a K95 or N95 mask. This is particularly important if the employee is not fully vaccinated and is in an indoor or crowded outdoor setting. Number 5, consider also wear eye protection in addition to a respirator if fully vaccinated and have significant close contact with others who may be unvaccinated. Post signage to remind everyone who enters your establishment that they should not enter if they have symptoms of COVID-19 or if they are under isolation or quarantine orders. This is already being done based on the signage that I explained we have already implemented many, many months ago. If possible, maintain an outdoor break area for employees so that they can take their breaks outdoors. We actually already have an outdoor break area. We have a bench that is in the back parking lot of the district that, employees can use for either their breaks or their lunch for their regular 15-minute break or a lunch break. So that is already being provided to our employees. The next best practice is that in indoor break areas, tables at least 6 foot distance and post occupancy signs to reduce risk of crowding. Next slide. Number 9, control access to self-service areas such as beverage service stations by keeping them closed or limiting access to them as self-service areas, or encourage employees not to congregate and require use of common utensils and dispensers. Again, this information is already provided to our employees via the signage that we have in our break room. Number 10, consider use of partitions between people to protect staff who are not fully vaccinated and have frequent close contact with other employees or visitors. We do already have some partitions. If we need others, we will working on getting those. Those come very quickly if we have a need for additional partitions. Make sure your building's HVAC system is in good working order. We already are through our building maintenance coordinator. We already have this in place. So our HVAC system is in good working order. Number 12, consider installing portable high-efficiency air cleaners, upgrading the building's air filters to the highest efficiency possible, and making other modifications to increase the quantity of outside air and ventilation in all working areas. We are working, and I'll speak to this a little bit later in the slides with regard to what West Basin is doing in terms of air purifiers for the building. When weather and working conditions allow, increase fresh outdoor air, opening windows and doors. We already are in the practice of having or keeping certain doors open. However, when the building is set up, we can't have it open. But they also indicate that considering fans to increase the effect of open window fans to blow air for not inward. Next, decrease occupancy in areas where outdoor ventilation cannot be increased. The next slide, they also suggest that you place hand washing stations or hand sanitizer at entry and outside communal bathrooms with signage promoting use. Again, this has already been done. We have signage that speaks specifically to this. And wellness stations have stated earlier, hand sanitizers, gloves, and masks. Encourage frequent hand washing. Again, our signage that is already in place speaks. Post signage so that visitors who are entering your office building are aware of your policies. Again, we already have signage, so this has been done. Use your online platforms to communicate your COVID-19 safety to the public. Encourage vaccination. I believe the district has done so. I have mentioned in past reports, oral reports, that the general manager had prepared a support letter so that staff could use in order to obtain the vaccine. Actively encourage and support symptomatic, infected, or exposed employees to stay. Signage that is already in place speaks to this. Reinforce paid leave policy. We have done so. Protect employees who are at higher risk of severe illness. Next slide, please. Now, on to some West Basin updates. So the West Basin Human Resources Department staff, which would include myself and our HR analyst, issued a survey to other like water agencies asking the following questions. Are you asking employees if they are vaccinated? So do you have a form that you could share? If you are seeking, or if you are asking employees if they are vaccinated, are you asking for proof of their vaccination? For those employees who are vaccinated, what types of accommodations are you providing them? And 4, do you have a form for employees that need accommodations due to COVID-related issues, such as childcare or non-vaccinated employees? So what we've determined from that survey, for those agencies that did receive, because a number of them did not, that the large majority of agencies are not asking staff if they are vaccinated, and they're either, and so basically they're either relying solely on the employee volunteering this information. As I've mentioned, next slide, at previous updates, is that staff at West Basin have volunteered their vaccination information. So we've estimated, without actually verifying it in writing, but we have estimated that the vast majority of staff, at least about 90% of staff, are either fully vaccinated or have received at least one COVID vaccine shot. What we're currently doing is department managers have already provided or in the process of providing information to the acting general manager on how their staff can accommodate a hybrid or phased reentry into the office based on departmental operations. Next, our hybrid phase schedule must take into account potential staff accommodation requests based on childcare issues, disability, or any sincerely sincerely held religious beliefs. So at this point in time, we are having considerations at this time of a staggered office reentry beginning July 6, 2021, wherein appointed staff will work in the office starting 1 day per week through August 31st, 2021, after which time staff in office will slowly increase. We're in the process also of purchasing an air purification system for the DLD building in order to ensure the health and safety of our employees by protecting them from unhealthy airborne particles such as viruses, bacteria, etc. And I spoke to this earlier. This was one of the best practices that was mentioned by the LA County Department of Public Health. So we are already and have been in the process of purchasing this purification system for all floors of the district office that would help further protect staff in an abundance of caution upon a phased return to the office. And that will conclude my report. Next slide. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Yes, Chairman Deere, as you can see, there's a great deal going on multiple different levels when it comes to returning to the office, making sure that our employees have a safe work environment and are able to come back and do the jobs that they love, but make sure that when they return home to their families, that they're safe as well. As Michelle said, we are happy to answer any questions, but I did like to let you know that it is a little past noon. Per our schedule, we intended to convene this meeting and enter into a special board meeting. But prior to doing that, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Mr. Chair, one question.
Go ahead.
How does this affect the folks who work at the NC Little site?
They obviously working in operations and contract operations would continue to work as they've been doing through the pandemic, obviously maintaining the pandemic protocols to make sure that all are safe, but no impact would be made to our contract operations.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Dr. Houston.
Well, thank you, Director Houston. I guess I just have a question here because I'm trying to figure out, there's a lot of information, you know, things are changing, but they're changing quick. But what's the bottom line? How soon do you believe we will be getting our office reopened and our staff working in some sort of capacity?
Michelle, I'm happy to answer that. As has been communicated to staff, and our managers are working extremely hard to collect the information from each individual employee about their current situations. Our intent is to reintegrate staff back into the office 1 day per week beginning July 6th. Again, this allows for staff to provide a little bit of flexibility to their situation, given that certain daycares are still not yet available and people have different needs that we're trying to accommodate. But our anticipation is that we can do that safely while maintaining the very high volume of work produced by our staff that they've been able to do during the pandemic. So we don't think that it'll impact productivity at all. And we are excited to reintegrate staff back into the office beginning July 6th.
Okay, that sounds good. Just because, you know, once again, I'd really like to get to some sort of normalcy as soon as possible. I even heard Dr. Ferrer on the radio the other day talking about issues in the workplace, and basically, you know, the state's moved forward with opening, and I think that we need to just get with it and do it as quick as possible. And unfortunately, when you do go to the office, it's a bit like a fortress. The doors are locked, you know, it's not even like a public space anymore. So I would like to see as soon as possible some sort of normalcy at the office. And also, of course, the ability for those of us who are vaccinated not to have to wear the mask, sitting at our desk, not to have to wear the mask. So again, I'd like to see us have more of a plan in place that you guys can present to the board so we can just get this moving. So thank you very much.
I have a question.
Director Gray, go ahead.
Thank you. I thought I heard Director Easton say that the door was locked to our office. Is that true? Is it open or is it off?
I believe we do have security during all hours of the day while staff is here. So the building is accessible to the public. They are met with our security to ensure our pandemic safety protocols.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I've been there a few times. So in terms of the public, the protocols will still be the same if the public comes into the building once you gradually integrate staff after, I think you said July 6th.
That is correct. And as noted in one of Michelle's slides, all visitors or non-employees and non-directors would obviously have a mask mandate for the foreseeable future.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. This is Desi.
Go ahead.
On the recommendation that the re-entry of staff begins on July 6th, and the way I read it, it's going to take 2 months to get people back in. Why does it take that long? And why do we start at 1 day per week and not just go to have everybody come back at once?
I'll be happy to answer the question. During this interim period, I've made that decision in order to maintain the discussion that happened prior with our staff. So in speaking with managers and staff throughout the organization, this was the proposed plan to reintegrate staff back into the office 1 day per week, beginning July 6th. And as such, during this interim period, I've worked with our team to maintain that status. So our managers are, again, working to collect information from each individual employee. It is our intent to grow that from 1 day to 2 days, but that is currently the plan as was made by Patrick Shields, General Manager of West Basin.
All right, well, I would encourage you to revise that plan, and that should be greatly accelerated, in my opinion, because there is no reason for it except that was your decision. Then on the issue of the building is locked. I mean, I was there the other day and I had to knock on the door and the guard wasn't sitting right behind the desk to get in. So can we have the building, at least the front door open? No one can get into the elevator anyways, and it is guarded.
So the security badges do allow anybody, obviously, with a security badge to enter the building, but I will talk with our manager of administration, and we will work with our security consultant to open the doors during office hours.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Director Houston.
Go ahead.
Just one more comment, because what Director Alvarez said is accurate. When you come to the building, the door's locked. And so if you don't have your badge, and I usually don't carry my badge, and if the guard's not sitting there or walking up as he sees you approach, the door's locked. So number one, I think that as this world reopens, the doors should be unlocked and the guard's there to sign people in. So I think that we do need to accelerate this based on the guidelines that keep changing. And again, the state and the county have really started opening things up. So I would ask staff to relook at this and bring back a plan to the board. So thank you.
Will do.
Okay, do we want to adjourn this meeting and have the special board meeting next and then come back to this meeting?
Yes, Chairman Deere, and of course, we do have a separate meeting link, so everybody will have to get out of this meeting, re-enter the new meeting due to our recording process. So if it's the direction of the chair, we shall do so.
Hello?
Yes, Director Deere, if that's your direction, then I believe we would all need to close out of this meeting and re-enter the special board meeting.
Okay, let's do that then. If there's no objection, we'll adjourn this meeting and come back to it later today.
Thank you very much.
This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman Deere. Staff has returned and we are ready to proceed.
Okay, we're on item 6B, EJ.
Correct. So Chairman Deere, members of the committee board, this item is related to consideration of district memberships and sponsorships for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. We do have our manager of administration, Julie Fraser Matthews, here to present this item. Julie, are you able to hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're on item 6B.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, Chairman Deere, members of the board and committee. This item that's being brought back to you today is regarding the district memberships and sponsorships. The fiscal year 2021-22 budget, the board approved the memberships and sponsorships that were included in the packet, as well as the items that were addressed at the budget workshop number 2 and number 4. Staff has provided a list of all of the memberships and the sponsorships. And we did take this information back at the last meeting. I believe one of the directors had requested that if there were items that the board would like to not consider on the membership or sponsorship list, to fill out a template that staff sent. And today we're back to have the board discuss and give direction on the list that we have in front of you today, which is the memberships on page 80 of the board packet and the sponsorships page 81. And the board had requested that this information be back to the board for further discussion. And so we're here today to answer any questions that you may have on this item.
Okay, are there any questions? Any questions?
Hearing none, would you like me to move to the next item?
You mean item 6C?
And Chairman Deere, perhaps before you leave, it is important to note that it's my understanding that all of these memberships, as well as the sponsorships, were included in the fiscal year budget. As such, staff would proceed with paying those. We're beginning to get those invoices, and specifically related to the sponsorships. We are starting to see several different organizations contact us related to their potential events and their conferences. So hearing no direction from the committee or board, staff would proceed as the fiscal year budget provides for those memberships and sponsorships.
Okay. Anyone want to speak up?
A question.
Is that Director Williams?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When this item go before the board and we have an opportunity to speak to this again at our board meeting on the, whenever that is, on the 28th, or is this it?
Nope. No, that's correct, President Williams. This would actually move forward to the full board agenda. And if at that time any member of the board wanted to pull that item, it's typically handled as kind of a receive and file, but if any of the directors wanted to remove it on that agenda for specific discussion, obviously the president and the board could do so.
All right, thank you. That's all I
Okay,
have.
if there's no one else on this item at this time, we will move on to item 6C.
Thank you,
Audiovisual.
Chairman. So this item also is being brought back to the board. This is the scope for the audiovisual equipment for a request for proposal. As you recall, back in February the 17th at an F&A meeting, staff provided the board with quotes for audiovisual equipment. And we immediately were reaching out to our vendors, and staff did seek for estimates in order to inform the board of potential costs to upgrade the board equipment at both the DLD building as well as the Edward C. Little plant. And the board directed staff at that time to draft an RFP. And so today on page 84, you'll see the draft RFP for board's consideration, or if there's any edits that you would like to ask staff to include before we issue the RFP to the public.
Any comments from staff, from board? Okay, I guess we're on business on that one. Thank you very much.
I was just trying to chime in. This is Director Houston.
Oh, go ahead, Director.
I wanted to, on this one, I didn't have a chance to really read it thoroughly yet, Julie. So I see it's a scope of work, but is there any price points in here at all, or it was just open-ended?
There are no price points that are in the actual RFP. So at this point.
Okay. Let's see. By the way, it says here for the boardroom and then the coastal conference room. What is that?
The coastal conference room is at the WEC, our education center. So if you recall, the board had asked us to have like a mobile unit or have the capacity and capability to conduct remote meetings. And so we also have that in the RFP for consideration.
Okay. I didn't know we even had a name for that conference room, but I learned something. Here's what I don't yet understand is, okay, we've got a lot of issues dealing with the Donald L. Deere building. And I'm not sure, are we looking to fully upgrade our whole system in the boardroom? And yet we don't know the long-term, status of the building.
Right. Well, the direction that the staff was taking was that we were asked to look at the capability of recording and live streaming meetings. And so that's what this RFP would be.
Okay. So I think what needs to happen here though is, and I'm the one that's obviously been very forthright and happy that we record our meetings and we broadcast them to the public, and it needs to be a permanent situation. My only concern is if we end up spending an exorbitant amount of money at the Donald L. Deere building, yet we don't know if we're still going to be in that space, or we've got to renovate, or can we take equipment with us? So I think, ask staff in the past, and I think we need to know. I have seen there are certain types of more mobile, capabilities for these types of public meetings, and they use these example at El Camino Community College when they do their trustees meeting. It's just basically in a conference room, about as simple as a lunchroom practically, but they had like a monitor that was portable, and they had like 1 or 2 cameras, and they had some sort of microphone system for the Board of Trustees. And I've seen a very similar scenario at the El Segundo Unified School District. So here's what I'm getting at. I know these systems are not exorbitantly complicated or expensive, and I'm hoping that this is one of the options that we're having folks bring back to us on pricing.
And that is correct. We'll look at different price points and bring back different options for the board to consider.
Okay. So I guess when this RFP goes out, it's going to be it's going to have both of those types of options requested?
Yes.
Okay. And when would this be going out? I mean, obviously we have to have a board meeting and it'll get approved or something, but when does this go out to bid?
Well, the board had given us the direction that they wanted us to move quickly on the audiovisual the last time that we met. So if there's a change in that, then, we would take the direction from the board. But at this point, once we send out the RFP, it's pretty much ready to go. We would report back to the board, most likely, correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret, within the 60-day timeframe.
Yeah, I would anticipate that if, looking at the scope here and getting the board's final comments on it, and then uploading it into our e-procurement system early July, we would most likely be bringing back a recommendation at the August board meeting.
Okay, great. Well, as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're getting some feedback on a portable type of thing that we could utilize, at some point if we need to move facilities, then we could take it with us, as well as a permanent option. I think that works for me, just so we can look at both price points.
Okay, and also please note that, staff is also looking at what other agencies are using so that we can have a comparison when we do bring it back to the board. So we have many options that we'd like to give you, not just, one set of pieces of equipment that is the go-all.
Good. And this is more of a comment, and I did talk to the acting general manager about this, but my understanding is, because I did watch the video as well of our meeting when we did the hybrid the other day at the office, and of course it was really hard to hear what people were saying and certain things. So this go-to meeting and this hybrid thing, it's sort of limping us along, but we obviously need a more permanent solution and something that is easier to participate with. And lastly, the microphones in our office, of course, they've never been good, and they continue to be, really subpar, because if too many people have the mics on, you can't, the whole thing doesn't seem to work. So, I think we do need to get this moving as quickly as possible to have something in our office that captures the audio and video, quickly and properly, and moving it forward. I think this has been a long time in waiting. So I just want to say thank you, staff, and look forward for this going out to bid.
Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, we'll go on to the next item, the water bottle filling station program, 6D.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman Deere. This item is a specific item that has been carried over from the Public Information and Education Committee meeting. It was listed as an information item there, as it is here. And the reason for that is because staff does need some feedback from the board prior to the end of the fiscal year. If you turn to packet page 94, there is a presentation that's included in your board packet. And Haza, if you could change one more slide. So obviously you've seen some activity. I think most of you are probably aware. We've really been moving this program. We had, I would say, a great opportunity to get the word out to all of our cities and school districts. We've been working very hard to promote the program. And as things have started to open up within our cities and schools, we have been aggressively working with all of the partners to see if we can get some of those photo opportunities done as soon as possible. You can see obviously that the 2017 and 2018 applications here are for the most part all completed. We are still working with Hermosa Beach, and I do know that the city of Manhattan Beach actually has returned the funds for their water bottle filling station. If we can turn the slide once more. So here you can see the 2018 and 29 applications. This obviously was impacted, I think, quite a bit by the COVID pandemic. We had, I think, a great deal of success as far as getting those installed, but we're now going back to each of those and making sure that they're making progress on their water bottle filling station. If you can turn to slide number 7. So here you have the 2019 and 2020 applications. Again, several of the locations of the water bottle filling stations were closed to the public and actually closed to employees for some portions of that period. So again, we've allowed each of them more time, but we've had contact with each of them, and we do know that all of them are proceeding. So again, we feel very confident that soon as things become completely open, we're going to see all of these open and installed. If you can turn to packet page 99, slide 9. We did receive one new application, our most recent. It's the City of Gardena, Division 5. And we have awarded the $1,000 for the indoor station there. And if you can turn to slide 10, this shows all of our 2020 and 2021 program applicants. Again, it's important to note that as we receive these all within the last few months, they're now very excited to get these installed. I will tell you that overseeing the program with our staff, Tammy Hurley-High, we are experiencing, I think, a lot of interest in the program now that we're kind of stepping out of the pandemic. And so we are very hopeful with this program. And as such, of course, this program was incorporated and included in the next fiscal year budget. If you can turn to slide 11. You can see here, obviously, that there are numerous divisions that did not have any applications in this fiscal year. That being said, we believe that, again, there's still a decent amount of interest in this program. But you can see there that there are roughly $30,000 in remaining funds for this program. And next slide. And then, of course, we wanted to highlight this new application that we did receive. The Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District within Division 1 did submit a application, multiple applications for numerous sites. As you can see there, they have 10 sites that they've included in their application for a total of $20,000. Now, I believe most of you know that the program was intended to provide each different applicant up to 2 water bottle filling stations per ID. The parameters or the program is intended to provide these water bottle filling stations to public entities, and of course make sure that those water bottle filling stations are available to the general public within those public areas. So we obviously are looking for a high foot traffic area where people will use the filling station to maximum usage. And if you can turn it to slide 13 there. For this item, it's important to note that over the past several years, towards the very end of a fiscal year, the board has been a little bit more flexible when it comes to our applications for the water bottle filling station. As such, we have on occasion awarded non-public sites or non-public entities with a water bottle filling station, depending on the situation. And we have allowed for multiple exceeding the 2 water bottle filling stations on occasion. And again, going back to the history of this program, staff has always taken a very flexible approach to each application. When we receive an application and it perhaps does not meet all of the criteria within the program, we immediately contact the applicant to see if we can work things out and see if there are opportunities to make sure that they find an opportunity to utilize the water bottle filling station. So in this case, looking at the fact that an applicant could have up to 2 water bottle filling stations per fiscal year, staff does see that there are 2 options here for this one applicant. One, we could fund the 2 locations for a total of $4,000 during this fiscal year. So as long as we process those applications prior to the end of this month, they could get two right now, and then beginning July 1, they would be eligible for 2 additional water bottle filling stations. So they would ultimately get 4 within this month and plus activity. Now, there is a second option in that the board could consider to allocate remaining unused funds from fiscal year 2020, 2021 for the PVPUSD application. And as such, I do notice that President Williams in Division 1 would have funds remaining within his division that he could award, so they could do up to 3 per this fiscal year. And on occasion, other directors have authorized us to shift funds from within the program to that division. So with that, staff could proceed under option 1, which would be where the program is intended to be. But if the directors want to be flexible on that, we'd be happy to process the applications as you see fit under option 2. And with that, Chairman Deere, that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions on the board? Director Williams, what's your desire on this? Do you want us to give you all the money?
I'll take all of it. No, well, let's see what's, haven't been out in a while, so don't really know what's going on out there. So, but as long as it gets out there, doesn't matter which division it's in, as long as it gets to the.
Well, option 2, you could give funds, increased funds, but not necessarily all the way up to $20,000. But I would agree with the combination of 1 and 2 by giving them additional funds.
Yeah.
Harold?
I would support that, but I'd like to get back out and about before I, commit.
Oh, okay. Well.
And President Williams, it is important to note that the funds that remain in this fiscal year's budget, once we begin the new fiscal year, while the actual dollars don't go away, the budget would be concluded. And so we wouldn't be able to dip back into this fiscal year's budget and apply that to new applications. So upon the close of the fiscal year, this program will somewhat move forward into the next fiscal year. I hope that makes sense.
But how much support have we had out there to requesting these funds?
So staff has done, I think, a pretty good job of letting our education systems within the West Basin service area, as well as the municipalities, know about the program. There have been challenges due to the COVID pandemic. One of which is that a lot of the construction projects have been placed on hold or have been temporarily stalled. And that's typically where you see a number of the water bottle filling stations get installed, is when they're doing some sort of work and it makes sense to remove the old station, the old water fountain, and install the new one. The second is when there's just a malfunction with the previous one. So there's no construction, but they see that an upgrade would be needed. And I think the third one is when you have some sort of restrictions. And I think that that's what you're seeing here with the school district. So utilizing the reopening of the schools and the opening from the pandemic, there were regulations in place that would not allow for a normal drinking fountain to be utilized at the schools during the COVID pandemic. And as such, I know that several, or if not all of the school districts required the children to actually come with their water bottle and drink from that rather than a drinking fountain. So I think that this school district was a little bit ahead of the game and saying, hey, why don't we just change all of these out and put new ones in? But under the current program, as the program has been created, You know, option one allows for them to receive 4 of those filling stations. So that to us is kind of everybody is moving forward as was intended. But with the remaining funds within this fiscal year's budget, we're wondering if the directors would like us to apply funds to those additional filling stations. But the window's closing as the fiscal year closes as well.
And if I could just add, again, this is a decision that needs to be made within the week, if you will, because of the fact that our fiscal year ends a week from today. So we just need to know from an accounting perspective how we're going to handle it. And I know you're wondering what other things are there, but it seems to me that this needs to be moved, if it's desired of the board, to the Monday board meeting on the 28th for a decision so that we can act upon it and get it done before the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you, Margaret.
So the time is virtually out.
It's got to be agenda anyway, right?
Huh? That?
Margaret, you have to agendize this as it is here. We'll still have the options on next Monday of either option 1 or option 2.
That's correct, Chairman Deere. If I can point out that under this program, flexibility was originally intended, and as such, it's my understanding that none of these have ever come forward as far as an action item. They've always been done as an information item in order to provide the director whose division would be impacted the opportunity to add flexibility. It just so happens that in the past, other directors on occasion have provided some assistance. And I can think of a few examples under LA Unified School District for one, and then a couple of the different, Michael's Learning Place being another. There's been a couple of the different private sector or private entities that have sought water bottle filling stations. So historically, we have not brought this as an action item. Staff has just brought it as an information item to receive direction from the board.
Well, do you want direction today from the committee, or do you want direction from the full board?
We could do that either way. I just knew that President Williams is on this committee. Again, this was intended to come through the Public Information and Education Committee originally, but due to the end of that meeting, we kind of pushed these other items without getting feedback on this. And as Margaret said, because we're running out of time, we wanted to get it on an agenda as soon as possible.
Well, it seems like we, option 1 for PV, Unified School District, what are you telling me here again?
So if you look at option 1, that is how the program was intended. So they would be allocated 2 water bottle filling stations in this fiscal year. And that was kind of the limit. In the new fiscal year, so beginning July 1, we could then process 2 additional. So they would have 4. However, just under Division 1, that would mean that you would have $3,000 remaining in this fiscal year that would be unused.
Okay, so then what can I do to use all of the money?
So utilizing just your budget, you could allocate $6,000, which would do 3 this year, 3 water bottle filling stations this fiscal year. And then of course we could authorize the application for 2 in the new fiscal year, which would give them a total of 5. And then you would have $1,000 still remaining in this fiscal year budget.
But this won't be short of anyone else, right?
You would not short anyone else, but you would have 2 of your applicants in the new fiscal year almost immediately. So, and that's how the program was designed.
Well, let's do that.
I agree.
This is Director Houston.
Go ahead, Director Houston.
Personally, I think we should just allocate all the leftover funds to this, because at the end of the day, it's lost. I mean, at the end of this month, the money is completely lost. So why not just fund all these people who have put in an application? I mean, there's no real loser here. I mean, otherwise this money just doesn't get spent, because it's not rolled over. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, Harold, you could even have the money out of my fund, whatever's left in it, but I see no reason to deny this. Why not just move it forward and keep it rolling? Otherwise it's just wasted. But that's my opinion. So.
Well, if what you're saying basically is option 2, and I'd go along with that also, option 2, that up to $20,000 if there's no other entities, so forth involved. Harold will take the money to make him look good.
Option 2, then. Let's do it.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're now on 6E, the monthly financial report.
Yes, that's correct, Chairman Deere. And our last item is, and that will be taken by, is it Margaret or Marianne will be handling that?
I will
take it,
start with
EJ.
open. He's going to provide it, but I'm going to do an opening comment, if you will.
Perfect. So we got a team. Take it away, Margaret.
And my monthly update is really just to provide an update to the board as it relates to our 2021 financing transaction. On June 9th, we did enter into the market, and we were able to be served by JP Morgan as our senior manager, and we had co-managers Siebert and Barclays there as well to be able to deliver us a successful transaction as it relates to refunding our 2011A and our 2011B bonds, as well as fixing out our commercial paper. As a result of that transaction, we were able to achieve an overall total interest cost rate of 1.55%. And again, these were bonds from 2022 through 2041. This resulted in a present value savings of about $19 million, or about 25%. So when we compare to what we presented to you in the May committee, we thought we would have about an $18 million present value savings at a total interest rate of cost of 1.71%. So again, a very successful day for us in the market. And again, we were fortunate enough to be able to have high quality debt, and we were able to be aggressive in our pricing to our investors. And even with that, we were able to see our demand for our bonds to be, in some cases, 4 times oversubscribed, which allowed us to further tighten our bond pricing and to provide us the rate that I provided you at a 1.55 overall. So we wanted to thank our financing team of Stradling, PFM, AMLO, of course, was involved, as well as our district council, our trustee, and of course, our underwriting team as well. Thank you to the board and to the staff for us able to do this for our service area and achieve this great savings over the lifetime of these bonds. And with that, I'll turn it over to Marianne.
Thank you, Margaret, for that good news. Yes, I'll take it over from here. Good afternoon, Chairman Deere and members of the board. We do have a number of reports, as you know, each month that we present, and we'll just get right into it if that's okay with you. We'll start off with the demand list. That will start on page 106 of your packet, all the way through page 111. I will just say that for the month of May, we had about 14.4 million in demands. As you recall, all these payments cover the operating costs of the district for the month of May. With that, I'll leave it for any questions that I may be able to answer for you.
Is there anything on the demand list that of note that we should be aware of?
No, not really. These are pretty much the normal demands that we have. We have our water bill payments to met, we have payroll, we have reimbursements and so forth. So nothing out of the ordinary.
Margaret, you remember back when we had the first Director Smith from Inglewood on the board, and he always had a question about some items on this particular
Yes, he did.
List. Does anyone have any questions on any of the items on the demand list? Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, so we'll move on to, if you're okay with item 6EB, this is your monthly cash and investment report. Happy to report that we have 98.6 million is the market value, and that is as of May 31st, 2021. As you see on the screen here, we have our security type here. You can see in that pie chart, most of our funds are in what we have is LAIF, or a money market fund, that presents about 51% of those funds, and the other 49% are then in the other categories you see here. And moving to the next page, we have a couple of more charts for you. The top one I'll just highlight is our credit quality. We do strive to make sure that our investments are in very high quality investments, and you will see outside of the LAIF fund, we have the majority of our investments in either AAA or AA rated funds. And then moving to the next page, you would typically see on this page monthly transactions. However, during the month of May, we did not have any to report to you. So you'll see there's nothing on this page. So moving down to the next area, starting on page 115 all the way to the end, this is the detail of each of the investments that we have, including our cash and LAIF and so forth. With that does conclude the cash and investment report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that report.
Questions? Probably not. Thank you.
All right, well, moving on to 6EC, this is your monthly water sales report. This does compare the current year with the prior year and, of course, the budget. And we'll just start off at the top of page, let's see, page 119. This is the imported retail sales for the month of May. And if you look down at the column where it shows May, you can see that we're slightly below what we had sold last year, and that was about 260 acre feet lower than last year, and about 254 acre feet lower than budget. But if you move all the way to the right column where it shows the year to date, you'll see that we're in a very good position to meet and if not exceed our budget by next month. And moving down to the bottom of the page, there are your imported barrier sales. If you recall, the imported barrier, we budgeted $4,700. That's broken down between our Dominguez Gap sales and our West Coast barrier. Again, in the month of May, we did quite well. We exceeded both last year's sales and the budget, and we are on track to, we'll make budget, if not exceed budget as well. And then on the following page, we have our recycled water sales. This one I'll just give you a little bit of color on. For the month of May, you can see we did pretty close to what we did last year, but we did not hit budget. And that kind of falls over into the year to date. As you can see, we're not going to quite make budget this year. And if you look at it in kind of the broad categories of our disinfected tertiary, our recycling, the refineries, and then of course our injection into the barrier, West Coast barrier, we're doing great when it comes to our disinfected tertiary sales. We have exceeded the budget, and we'll probably continue with that through the end of the year. We will also meet budget, and we're darn close on the refineries. Unfortunately, on the barrier, the county has reduced the amount of water they are allowing us to inject, and that has continued. And we do expect that to continue, as we've reported during the budget process, with the county going into a rehab of some of their wells that started this spring. It is supposed to continue into next fiscal year. So that's why you're seeing a drop between what we budgeted and what our actuals are. So moving down to the last area on this page, we have our imported barrier, desalted sales, and happy to report we did have some sales for the month of May. You can see that we had 31 acre feet, a little bit more than last year, not quite to budget. And that concludes my report on water sales. But again, be happy to answer any questions that I can.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Marianne.
And then the last report is the director's conference and travel, as well as the executive staff conference and travel report. And you can see on this first page here that there has been expenditures of about just less than $5,300 Of course, we had a budget of 75,000. We won't spend that by the end of the year. And moving down to the next page, which shows executive management and staff travel, again, well under budget. We had actual expenditures to date of about 18.6, and we have a budget of 150,000. So again, well below budget. And again, that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Well, there again, everything is clear. Thank you very much for excellent reports.
Thank you.
We're now on item 7, closed session. There is no closed session. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct.
Okay, director's comments or future agenda items. Any comments from directors?
Just a
Scott,
great.
do you have a comment? You always have a comment. Go ahead.
Always have a comment.
No, thank
Just,
you.
I want to say, great job, staff. Thank you very much. And these are really thorough reports. So thank you.
Harold, are you on board still? Yeah. Any comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, and I don't see that the other 2 board members are on board, so we'll go on with adjournment. We'll adjourn from this meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Bye.